Hello and welcome to the Irish NFL Show. My name is Shane Brennan. I'm joined by Brian O'Leary, and now the Six Nations is done, and we now focus back on the real oval ball game, the one that really lifts our hearts up as American football. There's still plenty of news coming along as we help to build up towards our coverage of the 2026 NFL Draft. Next Monday is 1 month until the draft. That's when we will be kicking off our in-depth coverage of what each of the 32 teams want from this year's draft. So if you have any thoughts or anything you want to talk to us about, make sure you follow us at Irish NFL Show on Instagram, on Twitter, etc., and then let us know your thoughts. Send us in any questions you want us to answer over the course of our podcast. So we're doing a little bit of a news round because one or two small things have happened over the course of our St. Patrick's weekend. Hope everybody enjoyed that, by the way. And Brian, I'm going to start with what happened in Denver. It's funny we're talking about what we can look forward to the draft when we are going live, as I'm sure we will be on Thursday night, and most people staying up to watch it. But the Broncos fans don't have anything to stay up for because they've given away their first round pick in exchange for Jaylen Waddle. Waddle, of course, one of the, somebody who's really impressed during his tenure in Miami. He now goes from Miami to Denver. The trade means that Jaylen Waddle goes as well as a fourth round pick, which is a little bit better than the one that Miami gave back to Denver. Miami get from Denver a first round pick, a third round pick, and a fourth round pick, which is slightly worse than the fourth round pick they gave back to Denver, but that's going to in the weeds a little bit. But it's a big move here from Denver. I think this is one that it's a sign of a team who know that they are on the precipice of winning a Super Bowl versus Miami, who are trying to build up picks and are in a bit of a rebuild.
Yeah, I suppose the deal in many ways might suit both parties in the long term, Shane. Open transparency, Shane. Every time Waddle did the Waddle celebration, it never dawned on me why he was doing it.
You're just thinking like penguins or something. Like what's?
I don't know. I think, look, don't get me wrong, he's a great player, and I was going to take it to myself when the trade took place. That's a great acquisition for the Broncos. I'm still not entirely sure it's the right acquisition for the Broncos. You've just called out there. I'm probably going to have a slant on this. Probably will upset a number of Broncos fans. But it's more about where I see the team going. And you look back at and you reflect on a season, and I get it, and I say it all the time. Every NFL season is very different. But for me, the Broncos need to find a running back. I know Harvey was a great addition to the team, the rookie running back last year. J.K. Dobbins had a good spell. They brought him in from the Chargers, had a really good year. And I said, I wonder, should they have kept him? And even during the draft night, which we were lying last year, Hampton went to the Chargers, the one selection above the Broncos, and I felt, the Broncos went prior to the Chargers, and they went a different route, and that was a surprise. And I still think a year on, they should be doing everything in their power, and they may well be come draft, but now you wonder where they're going to find this running back. I know sometimes you get great additions in the later rounds. It doesn't strike me as a deal that they had to do. I think they've got players there that can be really good in the passing game. Franklin, I think Cortland Sutton is still a really good wide receiver in his own right. And I look at the value, and I know we get carried away with trades and what they're giving away, but it does seem a bit extreme. They're giving away their first round pick, they're giving away their third round pick. Okay, they swap fourth, but down okay, let's see what the value is. And I wonder, and they've got a second round pick, 2 fourth round picks, fifth, and then 3 sevenths. Okay, so look, the Broncos haven't had a lot of picks over the last few years because they've done trades here, there, and everywhere. I think back to the Russell Wilson trade. And look, could be here a year's time, and the Broncos could go get over the line here and win the Super Bowl. I suppose they're probably looking at it as a team that will still feel, and you may not agree because you're a Patriots fan, but will still feel that AFC Championship game is there to be won, and if it wasn't for the adverse weather conditions and the Bo Nix injury in the divisional round, they may have gone all the way this year. For the Dolphins, look, it kind of signifies where they're at. But I do think they've done a dirty. We've had this conversation over last week about trades happening and who's doing disservice to other teams. But I think it's unfortunate for Malik Willis, who has got paid to go in and be a number one starter, and immediately their biggest weapon is now off the books. And there's even conversation about A-Chain, the running back, being traded. I know they're dismissing that, but of course they're going to dismiss it now. But if the value is there come draft night, there's a chance to reevaluate everything in Miami. New GM, new head coach. They brought in a quarterback to have, a good relationship with from the Packers side of things. But I'm not entirely sure where this team is going to be. It looks like it's a complete, tear down, and they've given away their best player. For Waddle, it's a great move for Waddle. You can in a division which is one of the most enticing in the league. We expect a rebound off the Chiefs. We expect the Chargers to come back again. And let's be fair, the Raiders have done really well in free agency. They spent it all. Max Crosby's back. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting AFC West. But Waddle's probably gone to the right spot. There you go. Give me a lot there, Shane.
I was going to say, I'm going to pick up on the Dolphins stuff first. Other than the fact that I don't know how you still didn't figure out the whole Waddle celebration. You ever hear the Duck song? Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle. No, is that not being a thing?
Yeah. Too busy with other NFL stuff and too busy during red zone nights to get carried away by. There wasn't enough Waddle celebrations last year. Maybe that's why.
See, maybe it's because my AFC East fandom means I see Miami Twitter more. I see Dolphins Twitter. It's sort of the way the Dolphins fans react more. And obviously they were a big fan of Waddle and what he did, and he seemed like he always had great output without sort of the drama and the injury concerns that Tyreek Hill had. As much as Hill obviously had the great speed and the ability to be explosive. I just find the capital that Miami have gotten here, though, might have been too much for them to turn down, considering what they're building up to. I understand that Malik Willis was brought in on a 3-year deal. People are wondering to what extent are Miami cleaning house here and even just trying to reevaluate in the future, either to tank for Manning in the future or just to build something completely different here. And maybe that even means that, hey, because I have to remember that during the years when McDaniel was head coach of the Dolphins, you have to remember that they didn't have a lot of first-round picks and a lot of draft capital to work on because of they're taken away from them effectively. So this is obviously a big step for them to restart. I just wonder whether this is just Denver almost to get them, because there was a first-rounder at pick and it wasn't a second-rounder that was leading off the charge. It was too much for them to turn down here. So from a Miami point of view, I can understand why they want to try and build up capital. Like, they're not trying to keep any culture inside the building because there isn't anything exceptionally strong for them to build off in future. They need to sort of strip things out, rebuild things in the new general manager's vision, rebuild things in the new quarterback's vision, which of course we always slag off the fact that so much of what they're bringing, general manager, head coach, and quarterback, is coming out for Green Bay. So I'm not against what the Miami point of view here. I do agree with on the Denver point of view. If you're going to throw away a first round pick and all this other capital, I don't think a wide receiver was the place to do it. They need a running back. And you're referring back to, the position that Denver are in and saying, well, maybe that AFC Championship game was there for the taking if it wasn't for Bo Nix's injury. What was the big thing we were talking about going into the AFC Championship game? Denver aren't going to win this game because they have no run game to fall back on when the quarterback was injured. So I don't know why Waddle was the right person. He might end up having a fantastic season. Good move for him. Coming into a competitive division against the Chiefs, who I think are still going to come back. And like you're saying, all the teams in the AFC West seem to be making the right moves here. Maybe Denver felt like they needed to make some sort of blue chip decision here, but it just feels like the wrong one. Devon Achane would have been a better person to take off of Miami than Jaylen Waddle, in my opinion.
Yeah, and interesting you should say that. If you think back to Sean Payton's press conference after the game, when he was like showing, his remorse and his real disappointment in losing that game, he said numerous times, "I really felt our running game," and I don't know whether he was. Sometimes when you're so involved in something, you can't see you can't see beyond the wood and the trees. I don't know whether he was so convinced that what he had at his disposal was going to be effective enough to run the ball. He said, "I'm really disappointed with our run game. I felt we could have done so much more in the run game." I mean, there was time that we're getting to the AFC Championship, going to rewind here, but like in the second half where they only needed like 1 or 2 yards in a really precarious conditions, they still couldn't find a way to get the first downs. I agree. I like Achane might have been the better solution there. I spoke to a couple of Broncos fans this week, said, love the move in terms of, I love that they're trying to be aggressive and go all in and basically put ourselves back in a position to be really challenging next year. Probably very much aware that the Chiefs are going to come again next year and the Chargers in their own right will expect another big season, that they need to keep on top of things. Just don't think they put the value in the right place. The running back for me, that Achane for me was absolutely nailed on there. That was a deal, I imagine. If they had to put the right piece in place there, they could have got it. Just one more point in the Dolphins. Bearing in mind they're picking up $99 million of Tua's contract over 2 years. They're not really in a position to go into free agency and be really kind of dominant in terms of bringing in players. It'll be all these 1-year deals in the off. I imagine as the off season moves on. But with this capital that they've got now, they will be able to bring in players that you would imagine can have an immediate impact in the team at a very cost-cutting contract from a rookie perspective.
Yeah, I just think for a team who hasn't had a lot of first rounders being brought into the building in the last 5 years, to get more first rounders in future, considering they don't have a lot of money to spend around, I think it's definitely the right move. Let's talk about other news. It's breaking just as we were recording here on Thursday afternoon, Irish time. Quarterback Carson Wentz, one of the two quarterbacks who played in the Dublin game. Let us not forget. He's going to be staying with the Vikings. He's re-signing, so Minnesota's quarterback room now features 3 former top 10 picks in Kyler Murray, JJ McCarthy, and Carson Wentz. I think it's fair to say that Wentz worked okay in that system. I can understand why he wants to stay in there. I can't imagine there's much of a market for him outside of Minnesota. He's probably the 3rd pick there, but I mean, like we've seen how in Minnesota that they just seem to go through quarterbacks, and having a 3rd option considering JJ McCarthy's injury prone and Kyler Murray, we're not quite sure how that relationship's going to work out yet. It's probably a decent move to at least keep him in the building to not have complete turmoil in that quarterback room should JJ McCarthy get injured over the course of the season.
Yeah, slightly surprised he's returning. Probably more so because being a Giants fan, I used to do a lot of New York sports radio. There was this general observation that he was going to be released by the Vikings and the Jets were going to bring him in as a backup to Geno Smith, and that there will be an experienced backup brought into the Jets. And not necessarily that he would be challenging Geno Smith for the starting spot, but more so that they needed someone to come in a scenario similar to last year with the Giants, with James Winston, Russell Wilson, that they can bounce off each other, they have experience in the game, and they can work with it with an offensive coordinator. So when I seen this news earlier, a bit surprising. Like, we've been here time and time again, and Shane, with these scenarios where the head coach and the GMs will say all the right things. It's JJ McCarthy's job until it's not. Kyler Murray's got a shot to win it. I'm convinced that Kyler Murray's going to be a starting quarterback come September. And I know we have a very different opinion of him on the show. Kieran Boyle has literally given up on him, doesn't think he's a good locker room, thinks he's going to bring bad publicity to the Vikings. But Kevin O'Connell just loves this. He loves these projects, doesn't he? He has an appetite for bringing in these quarterbacks who, with very little time, can go in and do stuff on the field when they're limited in terms of bringing their quarterback out of a situation when other players are injured, or they bring in a quarterback such as Daniel Jones, and they gave him an opportunity last off-season to sign a contract there. He didn't. He went to the Colts. It's obviously that's worked out very well for him in the future. Sam Darnold has since won a Super Bowl. Probably the GM lost his job probably because he didn't keep hold of Sam Darnold. I'm not against the scenario where we're here a year's time and Kyler Murray's had a huge year for the Vikings, and the Vikings in a weird way will be back where they were with Sam Darnold, as in, should we keep him? Should we sign him to a long-term contract, or do we let him walk? And then let him walk and he goes somewhere else and he continues success. I think Carson Wentz is the fallback where if JJ McCarthy's not delivering in the camp come the summer, Kyler Murray for whatever reason is not delivering the goods either, there's that reluctance to go to Carson Wentz potentially. But that's the only reason I can say it.
But that's what I mean. Like the 3rd option they had this year was Max Brosmer. We saw how well that went. Do you know what I mean? So why not? Like, I can understand, like, out of all the teams who need a good 3rd option, based on how the last 3 years have gone in terms of the quarterback position, the amount of different quarterbacks who have played in that purple jersey, I can understand why they want to have Carson Wentz, who knows the system, was able to run it well. I think still has something about him, and I think as Carson Wentz is better than going to New York, right? It's better for him to be in there than the Jets.
See, everyone is assuming the Jets are going to be very bad next year. Like, I think the Jets have done quite well in free agency, and it's been. I
assume the Jets are going to be bad every year, but that's
okay. That's fair. Okay, and they've got a lot of picks, and people are suggesting this is a little tank year, so they can obviously get Archie Manning next year. But what I would say is the GM. Look, I think the head coach is on his last year with the Jets, but I don't think the GM is. In fact, I think the GM has done quite well in free agency in terms of experienced players he brought in. I don't think it's against the realms of possibility that the Jets win more games next season than people suggest. From Carson Wentz's perspective, I thought he would have looked at a situation like the Jets and said, right, they're bringing me in as a backup to Geno Smith, but I feel I've done enough in my time with the Vikings that I could potentially win that job and be the starting quarterback in the league. Right now, it looks to me like he's down the pecking order. But maybe he sees a different route to being the starting quarterback, and maybe he feels what I did for the Vikings last year come camp will keep him in a position where maybe they will go with him. I think it's highly unlikely, but that's my rationale.
Interesting your take, by the way, that Kyler will be the starting quarterback for Minnesota, and I think that to me is an expression of this how open this quarterback competition may be by the time we get to training camp. I'd be interested to know where Hard Knocks goes this year, whether we might get a chance to see inside the Vikings training camp, because maybe and the players see things differently than we on the outside do. Maybe he's thinking, there's still a chance for me to be a starting quarterback here come October. So I don't know, it'd be an interesting one to look out for over the course of the season. Brian, let's go back to talking about schedules and looking forward, there's still got a lot of international NFL news going to come out between now and May in terms of teams are playing in London, Paris, Madrid, Berlin. But it's the other stuff outside of the continent of Europe we're going to talk about and the knock-on effect that's happening. Reading on Pro Football Talk and a few places elsewhere as well. As it late last week, that it looks like that the opening night, which usually happens on Thursday, it's usually a Thursday night football game at NBC at the home of the Super Bowl champions, which of course this time at the Seattle Seahawks, might instead happen on Wednesday, September the 9th this year, as opposed to Thursday. Obviously good news for us to have football coming back even earlier, especially in a year when it's starting a week later than normal, just the way that the calendar is kind of dropping. But I think it seems that the way this is going to work out, we're going to have the Seahawks playing on Wednesday, the game in Melbourne between the Rams and the 49ers playing on Thursday American time, with time zones. I'm not quite sure what way that will land here, or what time that will be in Melbourne, versus I think they usually play the Brazil game on week 1. That could be the Friday night entertainment, college on Saturday, and into the rest of the NFL on Sunday. That seems the way that this is working out. But of course, these things are still uncertain. But the prospect of Wednesday night football, which has been talked about separately, is something that could happen on Thanksgiving week. It looks like it seems very likely we're going to get that on opening week.
Yeah, I was talking to Kieran Boyle late last night about this because people have said to me, "Oh, but the last couple of years we had Friday night games, but they were both played in Brazil. They were the Brazil games at the opening weekend of the season." If you remember, the Eagles beat the Packers. Then this year we had the Chargers beating the Chiefs. But however, they won't allow games to be played on the Friday night that are based in the States. So we're going to have a Wednesday night game. Do you remember the last time we opened the season on a Wednesday night, Shane? Want a bit of trivia on that? No? I'll give it to you. It was the 2012 NFL season. There was an election in the States and they couldn't do the game on the Thursday night because there was a big campaign march on, and they moved the game to Wednesday night, and the Giants hosted the Cowboys, I believe, and the Cowboys went in and beat the Giants. The Giants were Super Bowl champions at the time. It's so many years removed from that. However, there is a suggestion, and I think it's been shot down, that the Giants against the Seahawks could be the opener because the John Harbaugh effect, Jackson Dart, obviously the Seahawks are Super Bowl champions, and it'd be a nice game to start the season. I think that's been kicked into touch because the Giants have requested to play the opening game of the season at home to celebrate 30 years since they won the Super Bowl in 86 or something to that effect. 40 years even. Is it 40 years? Yeah, it's 40 years.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hate to break it to you.
Yeah. I forgot I'm 48 in this month. So other suggestions for Wednesday night have been Cowboys against the Seahawks, the Chiefs against the Seahawks. I think that's a risky one because they're concerned Patrick Mahomes may not be ready. And the Chicago Bears against the Seahawks. I think for me, that's the one I think that ultimately may come out on top. I think everybody who was going to stay up late on a Wednesday night going into a Thursday would love to see the Bears against the Seahawks in the opening game of the season, even before we get to the Thursday night game, which you said will be the Melbourne game, which is already confirmed as a NFC West showdown between the 49ers as the road team in Melbourne against the Rams. That makes for a great game, and always is when they play each other during the season. But you know, I was having another conversation last night around.
Did you have more conversations? Did you get any work done? You're just having conversations all the time. Conversation after conversation.
Do you know what's intriguing? We see it every year when the Super Bowl champions start. Even if you reflect on the game which we saw last season, the Cowboys should have won in Philadelphia in week 1. The Eagles were poor and the Eagles just about got over the line. The previous year, the Chiefs played the Baltimore Ravens, and the likely toe that, you know,
yeah,
we were so close to the upset in that game. And the previous year, there was an upset when the Lions went in and beat the Chiefs. Sometimes it's better to face the Super Bowl champion in the opening night. There's so much going on around the fact that there's a celebration. You catch them on the opening night of the season, and you may find a way to turn them over. So I don't think there'll be teams opposed to playing the Seahawks in week 1.
And if you think about it as well, I mean, like technically speaking, they have more recent tape that you can kind of decode them from as well, as opposed to any other opponents that may have finished their season in January. It's interesting, like the full list of potential opponents. Obviously, the Cardinals, will they do NFC West double? No, because the Cardinals probably aren't that interesting for TV. The Giants, the Patriots, do you think they'll do a Super Bowl rematch so early in the season? Probably not. I can't imagine, but they are possible. I'd say out of all those things, the Chiefs, I think, would have been definitely the pick. Listen, from a TV point of view, had Patrick Mahomes been fit, and maybe they're going to wait a couple of weeks before they make that decision. But yeah, the Bears, it looks like Seahawks Bears is probably the one that most likely is going to be picked for that one. So yeah, it'll be interesting, of course, trying to figure out what way we want to plan that. I'm sure there are many from the Emerald Islands Seahawkers and any other Seahawks fans might be interested in staying up late, maybe even going to visit the Emerald City for that one. But it should be good fun. Let's talk about some news that has happened to us here at the show, because obviously we're still plowing away with all the kind of stuff. We're having conversations. You love conversations. I like conversations. Having conversations all in the background, as much as our content and our output obviously changes over the course of the off season. The work in the background doesn't, in terms of trying to expand American football in Ireland, or what we're doing and everything else. We're delighted to announce that we are now a part of the Bleav network. The Bleav network is one of the biggest and best networks of sports podcasts in the US. It includes Sims Complete. It includes the Pro Football Focus podcast. It includes many others, including a lot of guests that we had on Radio Row over the course of our time in San Francisco. So they've decided on this pod this week to add the Irish NFL show onto their banner as well, which means that we will be working closer with the Bleav network. It's something which we've been working on in the background for a while, Brian. It's just very exciting to, I guess, obviously we tried to put in sort of a lot of high quality stuff in everything that we do. None of us are full time with this, but it's for us. It's about our passion. It's about growing the game, but also just trying to do some good quality work for fans and just for anybody who's interested. And it's great to see that we're working with a wider network now in the US that, in terms of, I guess to sort of broaden the footprint and let the world know that there is an Irish NFL show. People in Ireland care about the sport.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to the work in which you've put into this, Shane. I put into it, all the guys in the team. I mean, as I said, we continuously called them out when we were at the Super Bowl. We're very fortunate to be accredited to go to the Super Bowl, but to have 7 of the guys brought over, and we're very fortunate that we have very good commercial partners that allow for us to bring 7 of the guys over. But everyone's really worked very hard over the course of last year, and it's testament because the Bleav Network, they approached us and had the conversation, and thankfully we were in a position where we got to meet them in person in San Francisco, the Super Bowl, and they were very complimentary of the work. They're very complimentary of the Radio Row coverage, and they're very accommodating and giving us great guests, and that's the plan. I mean, that's what we've worked with them. You know, they're going to help us now to support us in terms of giving us more guests that are, you know, available to come on the show, who cover all the various teams around the league. I think we pride ourselves in trying to put out as much content, a balanced content, and to make sure that we're covering as many teams as we possibly can throughout the course of the season, that everybody who's a team and a love affair for the NFL gets to hear not just about their team, but the league in general. And I think this is kind of just the next step. And was it may not look a big thing, for us I think it's quite significant. As you touched on there, it also opens up doors for us to have access to do more stuff around the States, and they've been really helpful so far. And they bring a lot of expertise to the table, saying, like me and you were speaking about it offline, even some things already that they've kind of pointed out to us that but for visitors we may not have been aware of. So it's great to have a helping hand in Cam and the team coming on board to help us. So, you know, long may it continue, and it was a good time of the year to do it. We've been so busy. We had a slightly bit of a downtime to kind of make this happen. So I'm really pleased we got it over the line.
Yeah, look, this is look, full credit to anybody who's been a supporter of our project. This is, of course, everything that we do is trying to keep forward the next step. And just because we're not getting a Dublin game this year doesn't mean that the Irish NFL show isn't going to try and be as forward as we possibly can. But I think that wraps up everything up for this week's news round. There will be some more news coming later on in the week, some more guests come along. And like I said, we're going live on Monday night, 9:00, and then we can start our previews team by team of what everybody is looking for in this year's upcoming draft. But for now, thank you very much for listening to the Irish NFL Show.